All right, I would like to say good evening, good morning. Welcome to the Sunday school preview for the Sunlight Missionary Baptist Church. It's going to be a busy day tomorrow. It's been a busy week. I think I'm going to just cover a little bit about, I'm going to cover a little information, background information about our Sunday school lesson for tomorrow. It's talking about our lesson is coming from Genesis chapter 13, verses 8 through 18. The lesson is encountered is excuse me. The lesson is marking transitions. Marking transitions. Now, I'm going to talk about the background for the lesson based on marking transition. And the transition I'm talking about is between obedience and disobedience. I want to show the transition where a little background discussion on God calling out Abraham and Abraham, or God calling out Abram, capital Abram, giving him a command, and Abram going through his life being disobedient, and when he finally gets to the point where he becomes obedient, that's the transition. When God called him out, God told him he's going to make a covenant with him for very specific things. And Abram went through his life. He went through a long period of his life before Abram became obedient. Yes, he did what God said a little bit, but not all the time. And we're going to be talking about that. I'm going to be talking about that because it's important that we understand that we must come into agreement with the Lord today. We must come into agreement with the Lord. The Lord is not going to move on your behalf until you come into agreement and obedience to Him. Until you come into agreement and line up with Him, He's not for you. It doesn't matter how bad the other people are. Your disobedience aligns Him against you. He's not going to help you. God isn't going to bless disobedience. He's not going to bless sinfulness. He's not going to bless wickedness. And that is for everybody. That's what we're going to be talking. That's what I'm going to be talking about in the lesson. I'm not going to get too much into the devotional reading. I'm going to just concentrate on the lesson because that's what I'm talking about. The start off with our Sunday school motto from 2 Timothy 2:15. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needed not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. 2 Timothy 2:15. And a model prayer in unison. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. And again, we thank you all for joining us. We hope something that is said will be of some spiritual gain and benefit to you. Over the next to all the members of Sunlight, the Sunday school books will be sent out. I'll be sending them out on Tuesday, actually, then. But you will get your Sunday school books by the end of the month. And For those of you who don't have them already, you will have them mailed to you shortly. You will also be getting other information about Sunlight. We're well on our way to initiating or getting building permits, or finalized drawings and building permits for our elevator project, which includes our bathroom upgrades. That's the big thing. That's the big thing. But our lesson is entitled, again, Marking Transitions. And right now in the world today, and especially in the United States, there is much chaos and confusion. There is much chaos and confusion. There is much hate and discontent. It is prevalent. And you've heard the saying, the choosing the lesser of two evils. Well, no, that's not necessary. You don't have to choose the lesser of two evils. And you just got to be right with the Lord yourself. You don't need everybody to be right with the Lord. You just need to be right with the Lord, for the Lord to move on your behalf. God isn't going to force everybody else to get right and force everybody else into compliance for you, but he can exert his influence on the hearts and minds of people to get them to do what he wants them to do. And for his children, he has made promises that if we will do what we're supposed to do, get right with him and act right, he will act on our behalf. But our lesson is entitled Making Transition. Again, and the unit lesson is Leaders Set Worship Examples. This is important. This is important, especially with regard to Abram as a leader. Abraham is the father of the faithful. I want you to make note of things. When God changes someone's name in the Bible, when God changes a name, it's because that person has come into compliance with him. And he is executing his promise based on them finally getting right. That is what's happening. When they get right with him, come into full compliance with him, not mean they're going to be sinless afterwards, but they come into full compliance with him and what he has told them. Then cometh the name change and him executing his promises on their behalf. You can see that in the Bible. Now, our key verse is from Genesis chapter 13, verse 18, where it says this: Abram removed his tent and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord. Now, if I remember, whenever the word the Lord or God comes up, I'm going to be talking about the name. I'm going to mention the name that it's using. In this case, it is Jehovah. The word unto the Lord, that's unto Jehovah, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There it's talking about Jehovah. You know, in Genesis 1, Genesis verse 1, chapter 1, In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. All right. We have a couple of outlines. Actually, we have three outlines. A prudent proposal, verses 8 and 9. Genesis chapter 18, verse 8 and 9. Unwise choice, Genesis verses 10 through 13. And kept promises, verses 14 through 18. Now, I will tell you, the context of today's scripture is when Abraham and Lot separated, had to separate. They got too many. They were prosperous. God made them prosperous. God made Abraham prosperous, and Lot just had to happen to be there with him. But they got more and more people, and I will cover that in chapter 13, the context of it fully. But they got so many people surrounding them, and their people aren't getting along. Abraham has his group, and Lot has his group. They got a lot of people and a lot of cattle and a lot of stuff. Now, Abraham and Lot are blood. They're fine with each other, but all the people around them, not so much. And there was all sorts of strife and arguments and stuff among their people associated with them, not with them. And this is going to be repeated. You will see that there is this is something that's going to be repeated. Strife between other people, not the two that are important, but the other ones. And this all of this strife is going to happen because of disobedience. Someone disobeying God, it causes problems down the road. And there are some things you can't undo. There are some consequences, you can't undo them. And I'm going to start off in Genesis chapter 12 for context, to see how it is. Well, let me start again. I'm going to start in Genesis chapter 13, verse 1. Our lesson starts at verse 8. But just so you know what's going on, this is what it says for today's lesson anyway. Then I'm going to go back further and see why this strife is there. Genesis chapter 13, verse 1 says, And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. Yeah, Abram just got a whole bunch of cattle, silver, and gold and stuff from the Pharaoh of Egypt. Abram did Pharaoh dirty. Abram did Pharaoh dirty. Abram's in Egypt. God sent Abram to Canaan. So why is Abram in Egypt? Disobedience. And he went on his journeys from the south, even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hali, Hali, unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. Abram got Lot and them. They left Egypt. And he went back to Bethel. And Lot also went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents and servants. Lots and lots of servants. There's a bunch of people with them. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together. Each one of them, Lot had all his group, and Abraham had his group. They had so many, and they had so much stuff that they couldn't stay together. There was just too many of them, and they weren't all together. For their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. They had too much riches and cattle and stuff to stay together as a family. Now, I need you to understand this. It is established in the beginning by God. For this reason shall the son separate from his mother and father, and shall cleave to his wife. Adult males are not meant to live together. As individuals, you're the head of your house and the head of your family. If you're rich enough, have a bunch of houses on the same 100,000 acre land, yeah, as long as you're separated, you're separated. You're separated, you're fine. But in one house, there's only one head of the house. There can't be two heads in the same house. It doesn't work. God did not mean for people to be like that. Adult men to be like that. They could not dwell together. In verse 7, and there was a strife between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled there in the land. Now, they had plenty of herds and stuff, cattle, and they had all this stuff. And their herdsmen, the people that worked for them, couldn't get along. The people that worked for Lot's servant and Abram's servants, could not get along. That is the source of the strife, not Abram and Lot. This is a problem. Now, let me show you where this problem started. This is not supposed to be a problem. This is not supposed to be a problem. Let me show you. Go back to Genesis chapter 12. This is where this problem started. Where did problems start? Disobedience to God. That's it. That's it. And this lesson is making transitions, getting right with God. Verse 12, Genesis chapter 12, verse 1 says, Now the Lord said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show you. Get thee from out of thy country. He is in Ur the Chaldees, the land of Ur. That's where he is. That's where he lived. God said, Abraham, leave Ur. Leave your family. See, it says this, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, from your blood kin, and from thy father's house. From thy father's house. Abram, his brothers, his sisters, his nephews, his nieces, his nephews, sons, 3 degrees of separation. Our kin, male kin, 3 degrees of separation. From me to my father, to my uncle, to my cousin, male cousin, and my male cousin's child. Male child. 1, 2, 3. Male cousin's child. Male child is one off. He's the last of my kin. All part of the same clan, the same family, but scripturally kin ends at the fourth. At the fourth male bloodline. Lot is a part of his kindred. Lot is a part of his father's house. Lot is Abram's kindred. Lot is part of Abram's father's house. From thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee, and I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curse thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. This, God's saying, do this, and I will establish a covenant with you. There's all sorts of stuff going to be a part of this Abrahamic covenant. More of it will be discussed later. God says, when you do this, what I said, I will bless you. I will establish my covenant with you. One more time. God speaks to Abram. His name is Abram. When he gets right with God, God will change his name and God will establish his covenant. God is telling him here, I will do this. But again, get thee from out of thy country. Yes, he did that. Get thee from thy kindred. No, he didn't do that. And from thy father's house. No, he didn't do that. Unto the land that I will show you. Now he's telling them to go to this land and stay there. In chapter 13, we're talking about Abram in Egypt. That's not Canaan. Why you run off to Egypt? Disobedience. This is the thing. God shows you the consequences of disobedience from the get-go. God ain't negotiating disobedience. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Abram. Okay. This is important. Abram, 75 years old. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance, and all they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Abram, all their servants, and went forth to go into the land of Canaan. Unto the land of Canaan they came. And in verse 6 says this, and Abram passed through the land unto the place of Sychem, unto the plain of Moreh, and the Canaanite was then in the land. Then the Lord appeared unto him and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land. And there built he an altar unto the Lord who appeared unto him. Abram actually went into Canaan and stopped and built an altar unto the Lord. Now, in the next, in chapter 13, it starts talking about the poor, unfortunate people that ran afoul of Abram. Now, here's the thing. In Genesis chapter 12, verse 1, Abram is 75 years old. Sarah is 66. Abram 75, Sarah is 66. No children for them. They're too old. He's not too old. She's too old. Now, after verse Genesis, I'm going to keep reading. Genesis chapter 12, verse 8, verse 7. And the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land, and there built he an altar unto the Lord, and appeared unto him. And he removed from thence unto a mountain unto the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Hai on the east. And there he builded an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord. Now, Abram is in Canaan. He's building altars. He sits here for a while, build an altar unto the Lord, move somewhere else, build an altar to the Lord. Verse 9, and Abram journeyed going on still south, still towards the south. Now, listen to this. Verse 10, and there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. There's a famine came to the land. What does that mean? There's lack of food and stuff. Stuff ain't growing. Is God not God? Yes, God is God. So does Abram have anything to worry about? If Abram's obedient, then he ain't got nothing to worry about. If Abram trusts Jehovah, he ain't got nothing to worry about. But his name is still Abram. So that tells you something. He ain't right just yet. He ain't right just yet. So what's he gonna do? He gonna do something else wrong. Came to pass when he neared to enter into Egypt, he said unto Sarah his wife, Behold, I know thou art fair woman to look on. Sarah is 66 years old. You need to understand something about Sarah and something about Rebecca. They are not ordinary. Sarah and Rebecca have something. There's something extra added unto them. There's something extra added unto them. Sarah is 66 years old. She is way beyond childbearing age. That's generally what women are useful for childbearing. That's a point of things. Have families and stuff. You're not just there to look at. You wouldn't just have a woman because she's good looking. That's not a wife. It doesn't work like that. Nowhere in the world does it work like that. The thing about it, Sarah is 66 years old. I call it a Sarah and Rebecca type. There are other women that I've seen in my life. They're a little abnormal. They're not more physically beautiful than everybody else, because that's not a thing. All women are equally beautiful. They just look different. But there are some that are clearly abnormal. They have more stuff. Nobody knows what. It's just the extra. They're abnormally attractive. They're abnormally, almost supernaturally attractive. Thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Now, this is the thing. The law of armed combat. This is a thing. Humans, you can't outthink this. You can't outthink it. It is a thing in the animal kingdom. The one that lives, it's about combat. You fight for the woman, fight for the female. And the one that lives, the winner takes all. In the animal kingdom, wild goats butt heads. And the one that doesn't get his skull crushed, the one that wins, gets all the females. The lions, the male lion that fights off the rest of them gets all the females. Humans have to a certain degree have the same fight for the wife. So Abram understands this. This is a thing. This is a thing among everything. Among living thing, it's a thing. To males, it's a thing. So yes, when Abram comes to Egypt, says, okay, look here. Now, as a husband, so you can't have the wife. You can't really just take the wife. You got to kill the husband. That's the way it is. You got to, because she's married. She's married. You can't have sex with somebody's wife. That's adultery. But the law of armed combat, you want the wife, you got to go through the husband. You got to put the husband to death. That's what Abraham is saying here. This is a thing. This is a thing. It's always been a thing. It ain't so much, it ain't a thing in modern day, but it's a thing. It's a normal thing throughout most of human history. Throughout most of human history, that's been a thing. But now, Abram's left Canaan to go down into Egypt. That's not where God told him to go. Now he's gotten down there. He's got to lie and deceive. He's got to lie. So his sin is multiplying itself. His sin, initial sin, disobedience to leave in Canaan. When he's in a place where he should not be, he has to lie, causes more sin. Sin increases, multiplies itself. You got to get right with God and stay right with God so you don't have to deal with such things. All right. But here's the thing. Abram, when they came into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman that she was very fair. When they got down to Egypt, of course, people saw Sarah. People saw Sarah. 66-year-old Sarah. And oh boy, were they impressed. Again, Sarah was not ordinary. Now, physically she was, but she had extra. I've encountered a few and few such women, and it's like they have a watered down version of it, but hey, there's definitely some extra stuff added to them. People react to them way out of whack. They like them way too much, or they hate them. People don't react to them well. They're abnormal. People don't know how. A normal mind will react normally. An abnormal mind is going to react abnormally. The princes also of Pharaoh saw her and commended her before Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. They were so impressed with her. They said, "This is the most beautiful thing ever." She's not a young woman of childbearing years. It didn't even matter. That's the one thing that mattered. And that didn't even matter. That's how beautiful she was. That's how abnormally beautiful she was. Again, his son's wife, Rebecca, was the exact same thing. Abnormal. Now, took her into Pharaoh's house, and he, Pharaoh, entreated Abram well for her sake. And he had sheep and oxen and asses and men servants and maid servants and she asses and camels. Yeah, well, in order to get a bride or a woman, you paid you paid the father or the brother all this stuff for the bride. That's what the Pharaoh did. Gave him all sorts of stuff. He just loaded him down with stuff. Oh my goodness. How much did he give him? He would give him anything he wanted for Sarah. He just loaded him down with stuff. Verse 17, and the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarah, Abram's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, what is this that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me she was thy wife? Why saidst thou, she is my sister, so that I might have taken her to be my wife? So that I taken to me to wife. Now therefore, behold thy wife, take her and go away. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away, and his wife, and all that he had, and all that Pharaoh had given him. Because, again, Pharaoh didn't do nothing wrong. Abram lied to Pharaoh. And that giving them a bride stuff for the woman, that's a thing. But you see, Abram, from the beginning, disobeying God, consequences, disobeying God, consequences, disobeying God, consequences, disobeying God, consequences. Some bad. But again, they left off to Egypt. Abram, his wife, and Lot. Now, I need to remember some of the stuff that they got from when they were down in Egypt. They got maid servants, manservants, and all kinds of stuff. That's now why Abraham and Lot have all this stuff and all these people. These are the Gentiles that will remain with Abram and Isaac and Jacob and Jacob's 1, 2, 3, 4, 13 sons. There are Gentiles going to be with them from the get-go. Now, we have seen God give Abram a command, and we have seen, Abram sort of disobeyed God's command, and we've seen consequences. Consequences for other people. Consequences for other people. But this is where we are today. Again, we spoke about in the earlier on. Now there's strife between Lot's herdsmen and Abram's herdsmen. And that is where our lesson starts off today. Talking about, first outline is a prudent proposal. Now, in verse 8 and 9, this is what it says. And Abram said unto Lot, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdsmen and thy herdsmen, for we are brethren. For we be brethren. Again, they're from the same house, same blood, same father's house. In the absence of Abram's brother, Lot is the next one in line, so Lot would be equal to Abram. They're practically brothers in the absence of Lot's father. Lot defaults as the male head of that particular bloodline. So Abram and Lot are pretty much equal here. Verse 9 says this, is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou wilt depart to the right hand, then will I go to the left. Abram is giving Lot the choice of which side he wants to go on. Now you need to understand something. Listen to this. God told Abram, leave your kindred behind. Abram didn't do that. Abram brought Lot with him. In the land of Canaan, Lot is not supposed to be there. I'm going to say this again. Lot is not supposed to be in Canaan. Good afternoon. Glad to have you with us. Lot is not supposed to be in Canaan. I don't know how to make that okay, there it is. Lot is not supposed to be in Canaan. Everything that's going to happen to Lot's family and everything that's going to happen to Lot, everything that's going to happen with Lot's daughters and Lot's sons by his daughters, Ammon, what's the other guy name? Them two ites, Ammonites and the other ites. Those two enemy nations that are going to rise up, they're not supposed to exist. They're not supposed to be in Canaan. The reason Moab, the reason the Ammonites and the Moabites existed to make war with the Israelites is because of Abram's disobedience to God. Consequences. Some consequences just keep on going. Some consequences are permanent. Now, here it says a prudent proposal. Yes, they need to separate because their people can't get along. But even so, Abram is in a state of disobedience. But after this, after separating from Lot, we'll talk about that in a minute. It says this, and Lot lifted up his eyes. The second outline is unwise choice. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, and that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Yeah, that's where Sodom and Gomorrah was, and all them other cities around it. Even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar, Z-A-A-R. Then Lot shows him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves one from another. Okay. Abram sent away Lot. Abram is now in obedience to the original command of the Lord to separate from his family and his father's house. Now he's obedient. Not on purpose, mind you. Not on purpose. He doesn't even consider that he's done anything wrong. He's going to come back up again. Verse 12, Abram dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent towards Sodom. Verse 13, but the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. Just letting you know. Yeah, because stuff's going to happen. There's more stuff going to happen as far as Lot is concerned. Sodom and Gomorrah is just one little bitty thing. And that's, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, that's the thing that people know about. That's the thing that people know about. They skip over all the other stuff. Now, the last outline is promises kept. Remember what I said? You go back to Genesis chapter 12. when God gave him 3 commands, a 3-part command. Leave this land and go to the land that I will show you. Yeah, Abram, he went to Canaan, hung around in Canaan for a little bit, then left. That's not good. And when as soon as he did that, leaving Canaan, as soon as he left Canaan, problems. Why? Because that's disobedience. That's sin. God said, go to Canaan. Leave your kindred behind. Took Lot with him. Leave your father's house behind. Took Lot with him. Look at this now. Took them from the home that he was at. Took him to a place where he should not be. The land of Canaan is going to be gifted to the Israelites, not to the Ammonites, not to the Moabites, not to the Ishmaelites. These are just some of the ites that Abraham was directly responsible for putting in the land of Israel. This is just a few of them. And every time Abram disobeyed God, another bunch of ites appeared. What you gonna do? Now, but at this point, yes, he left Ur, he's in Canaan. He's in the land where he's supposed to be, where God has promised to him, to his ancestors anyway. Yeah, he brought Lot with him. Yeah, now he sent Lot away. So the other 2 provisions, he is now not with his father's no more of his kindred are with him, nor is his father's house connected to him now, out of necessity. So this is where we are, verse 14. And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot had separated from him. God did not deal with Abram till Abram came into compliance with God's command, one way or the other. God is not going to deal with you when you're being disobedient. God is not going to deal with you when you're being sinful. It does not matter what you think, what you believe, how much you beg, how much you pray. It doesn't matter. Obedience matters. Disobedience? No. After that Lot was separated from him, that is when God said unto him, lift up thine eyes and look from the place where thou art northward and southward and eastward and westward. It says, all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, to thy seed forever. It's important you understand. Forever. Whether they're in it or not, it's still theirs. Well, it's still what God has given to them. Are they going to get run out of it? Yes. Is it still theirs? Yes. Somebody else take it from them? No. Well, God allows it for a period, but it's still theirs. It says, and I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Nope. Humans can't count like that. Humans can't count like that. He says, arise, walk through the land in the length of it, and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. And Abram moved his tent and came to dwell on the mount of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord Jehovah. Again, Abram has gotten into a place now where he's where God told him to be. He's where God commanded. He is alone as God commanded. And he's figured it's best to stay right where God commanded him to be. Because if you go to another land where there's another king, somebody else is going to see savor. So it's best for him to just stay where he is. And that is where our lesson ends. Now, this is, again, understand what God said from the get-go. And when you see where people have gone off in different directions, there shall be consequences. In this lesson for today, in the 13th chapter of Genesis, you see where Abram, by God's direction, transitions from disobedience and understanding that you go contrary to God, there are bad consequences. Just decides to obey God. Transitions from disobedience to obedience. Now, this is not the last of his disobedience. Oh, no, 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 no. There shall be more. There shall be more. And it shall be painful. And it shall be painful. But the lesson that God wants us to understand is, get right with God. Get right with God. It's not up to you. This is not your world. It's His. It's His. And the world that we live in now, especially condition of the United States, people want to call on the Lord, but they don't want to do what God says. They want to call on the Lord and get the Lord to do what they want. Yeah, but the other guys, they're awful, awful, evil people. And just because they're worse than you, they're way worse than you all, but you ain't good either. And God ain't choosing the lesser of two evils. God is withdrawing His hand from any evil, from every evil. God is not smiling upon any form of evil. God is not blessing any evil. So, get right with God. Get right with God, America. Get right with God, O ye saints. If you want God to do anything for you, you're going to have to come into compliance and to obedience with His commands. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful Sunday.